Take One Media.
Tommy, what's your real name?
My real name? Well, Winston Thompson, but everybody calls me Tommy. So I'm really known as Tommy.
Tommy, that's the reason.
Mm-hmm.
Where were you born?
Where I was born? I was born in Guyana, Georgetown, 1943.
And what was it like?
Right? Consciousness didn't appear till maybe I was maybe 4 or 5. Then you become aware of your surroundings.
Yes, I'm 4 and 5-year-old boy.
Yeah, I'm running around, I'm playing, I'm climbing trees like all boys do. And then when I was 6, we moved to the country, up the quarantine, which is about maybe 80, 90 miles from Georgetown. Stayed there for about 6 or 7 years and then went back to Georgetown when I was about 13 or 14.
So as a child in Guyana, was it a happy life?
In Guyana, yeah. It was a happy, it was quiet. Everything was fine. I mean, I had a group of friends from school that I knocked about with. You know, we did various things, played cricket like boys did, went to the movies, things like that. I stayed in school till I was about 15.
Who did you grow up with?
I grew up with my grandmother because I lost my mother when I was about 2. So I was brought up by my gran. The old man used to play his part, but he left Guyana when I was 6. So from 6 till 16, my grandmother was my official guardian.
School life?
School life was good. School life was good. We learned the basic, the 3 R's, as kids did. You know, as kids did. Teachers were okay, a bit strict, because they took the part of the parents. When you went to school, you respected the teachers the same as you had to have respect for your parents or your guardian. And if you stepped out of line, you were, you know, I mean, you knew about it. That way, you spare not the rod and spoil the child, sort of attitude of the teachers. But school years was good. No complaints about school years.
So you've been through primary and secondary?
Yeah. Primary, secondary school, night school, and then, as far as education was concerned, that was the end of that.
Did you work in Guyana?
Well, we had after school. Yeah, I worked. We worked after school. We used to go to the docks, Sandbach Parker, and sometimes we'll do errands for the stevedores, get them refreshments and that. They'll drop us a couple of pennies and that. You know, maybe we can use to treat ourselves. And then I had a little job on the weekends. I used to work in a storage place where they stored wines and vats. We used to clean the vats out, earn few pennies that way as well. Yeah. I was a bit self-sufficient when I was a young boy. You had to earn your pennies because things was tight. You know what I mean? Things was tight. If you wanted anything, you had to actually earn it. It wasn't given to you. So you learned from a young age that if you needed something, you had to earn it. You had to work for it.
England. When did you heard about England?
I mean, when we went to the pictures, you see films based on things that happened in England. But as far as coming to England, I never thought I was going to come to this country. But I was kind of big for my age. Right? My grandmother found it kind of difficult to kind of handle me, sort of thing. So she wrote to my father and says, the boy needs a man in his life, so the best thing you can do is send for him. And he did, but she did.
And did you want to come?
I had no choice. Really, I had no choice. I had to come. I mean, it was like an adventure to come. something new.
So how did you travel to England?
Traveled by boat. It took us 14 days to get here. Sick as a pig for the first 3 or 4. Couldn't come out to the cabin, it's being seasick. Couldn't eat, couldn't drink, nothing. But after about 4 days, I got my sea legs. Started going on deck and coming out to the cabin, and just seeing the big ocean and wondering what was going to be at the end of it.
So when you reached England, where did you dock?
England, arrived at Liverpool. Liverpool docks about 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, I remember. The old man was there waiting for me. First time I've seen him in about 10, 11 years nearly. And got off the docks, met him, took me to the station, got on a train from Liverpool to Manchester, and then jump in a taxi. Yeah, and took me to where he was living.
Where was this?
That was in Ensor Street, 66 Ensor Street. I always remember that. Yeah, I walked in. On the way here, I thought, I don't know. I never seen fires in houses. You know what I mean? You come in and you see fire, smoke coming out of chimneys, and that kind of surprised me. You thought, all these houses are on fire, so I think. But that was the way people in England kept warm.
So you met your father.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't met for a while.
Yeah.
What was it like?
It was strange. I mean, when I was a kid, I used to call my father by his first name, Birchall. So when I came over here, he made me know, he told me, well, listen, you can't call me Birchall anymore because I've got 3 boys in the house. And they call me Dad, so I'll have to confirm and call him, refer to him as Dad. That was fine. Yeah, that was fine. He told me, explained that to me, so I understood that. Since went in the house, met the kids, we got on okay. We got on okay with them. Met my stepmom. She was first time, the closest I've ever been to a white person. So I think she was strange, kind of talking and listening to the way she spoke. But everything worked out okay.
So you went to school in England?
In England, no. I didn't go to school in England because I passed apprenticeship age. I was over 16, and it was hard to get into apprenticeship if you weren't educated in this country, because the education system was completely different. So the obvious thing to do was get a job.
Working in England, what was it like? First job?
My first job, I worked in a warehouse. Louis Goldman's, I always remember that guy. First job I had. Nicholas and George Street in town, doing soft furnishings, sheets, pillowcases, stuff like that. I worked there for about, I think it was for 2 years I worked there. It was good experience, good job experience. Like I said, I was from being a kid. You learn to earn your whatever you wanted. So, I kind of just blended in, just got a job, just did it, worked, earned the pennies. Wages then was only like, I think it's £3.30, something like that, for 40-hour week, and you got extra if you worked weekends, Saturday or Sunday. It was okay. Like I said, I kept that up for 2 years.
So you were still living with
Still living with my parents at the time, yeah. With the family at the time in Ensor Street, yeah. That was good. Then my stepmom used to work at Dunlop's, and when I was 18, I asked her if she could give me a job there, and she asked, and I got a job. Started working at Dunlop's. Wages went up then from £3 to £6, which I thought was great at the time. Everything was okay.
So what was that job like?
I was a rubber molder. Started working soles and heels. But in those days, everything was piecework. You didn't get a standard wage like you get now, £8 an hour or £3 an hour. In those days, you had to do a certain amount of work to earn the hourly wage. So everything was timed. So like for soles, you might have to mold, well, maybe 20 to earn an hour's, well, contributing to those hours. And then the heels, you might have to do another 15 of them, and then different things added up. So when if you did what you're supposed to do for that hour, then you got paid the full amount for that hour. Or if you did more, then you got paid extra for what you've done.
So you're talking about shoes then?
Yeah, soles and heels.
And how long did you stay at this job?
I stayed at Dunlop for 7 years. Yeah, I worked there for about 7 years.
So it's from job to home?
Yeah, well, that's the way it was. You start at 6 o'clock. I mean, in those days, it was 12 hours. It wasn't done like now. I mean, the first job, like I said, that was only 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. This one was 12 hours a day, 5 hours a week. So you went from 40 hours to 60 hours. And that was the norm. Sometimes you might have to work a Saturday for another extra 6 hours if you was doing like stock taking. So that was the norm in England at the time. Nobody worked at that 40-hour unless you worked in an office. All factories were mostly 12 hours.
Was the money good then, you say?
Yeah, well, I went from 3 to, I used to earn about 6.50 when I started, because at 18, I was still, you're a young person, I suppose. So you didn't actually get an adult's wage at 18. You didn't get an adult's wage until you was 21. So when the adults was getting maybe 9 and 12 pounds for doing a job, I was doing the same job and I was getting half of what they was getting. But that's the way the way structure was at the time.
Was there any other black person working in that place?
Yeah. Dunlop's was full of black people. I mean, it was a strenuous job. It wasn't a job that for the faint-hearted. It was a hard job. It was sweaty. You sweat a lot. The rubbers, there's the smell of the rubbers, and you used certain chemicals like naphthalene and terylene, or whatever they call that, tetracycline, should I say, that stuck the rubber together whilst you molded it. You didn't have no protection, so you breathe in them fumes. You got it in your hands, you got in your clothes. But like I said, it was all part of the job. There was no health checks or anything like you have now. Things were completely different.
Yeah, what was it like in the house in England comparing to back home?
Well, for a start, we didn't light fires in the home. The only time we lit fires was to cook. But in England, you lit fires to stay warm, to have warm water. If you was lucky, to get water so you can have a bath. Otherwise than that, it was just like a normal. You got used to it after a while, but at first it was a bit. Yeah, it wasn't easy, because like I says, you only had one fire to light to warm the one room that you sat in mostly. When you went into the bedrooms, most of the times you had to get hot water buckles to put in a bed before you can go to sleep. Toilets, half of them were outside. When I first came, I was outside, and I found it very, very difficult, especially in winter, to go and use a toilet at 7 o'clock in the night or whatever, because it used to be icy cold out there, and it was very hard to do anything in them kind of conditions. But luckily, after about 6 months, the old man had enough money to bring the toilet, have an indoor toilet, which made things then a lot easier.
Did you have your own room?
Yeah, I had the attic, because it was like two bedrooms, but I had an attic room, so I lived in the attic, so I had the attic to myself. My father had done that out to accommodate me, sort of thing. So I had a bed, a wardrobe, stuff like that in it. It was carpeted. Well, it wasn't carpeted, it was that line all the time. And that was my little special den.
Next job, what did you do?
After Dunlop's, Well, before I left Dunlops, me and the old man fell out. So I had to leave. I left home, and I rented a room. I think it was Boston Street. Boston Street, yeah. I rented a room in Boston Street. That was hard. That was a change, you know, because I've never lived on my own, and all of a sudden I come from the warmth and what you call it, the safety of living with my father, to living in a back room in a house with about 5 or 6 people. I found that, at first I found that hard. But like he says, you have to get used to it, you have to survive. So I lived there for about, I think 6 weeks, yeah. 6 weeks in Boston Street. And then I had to move. I had to leave it because everything was on a meter. The water, if you wanted hot water, you had to put a shilling in a meter to get. And when the water was warm, the most you got maybe is a bucket full of that. The gas was the same. So eventually, I had to get out of there. I moved from there. I went to I think Bishop Street, and I got a better flat, a better room, a better home, better house, and everything just kind of clicked after that.
Why did you and the old man fall out?
Me and the old man fell out because he left Guyana when I was 6, and when I came over here, he couldn't. I don't think he could handle the idea that I wasn't 6 anymore. I was 16. So as far as he's concerned, he was still treating me like if I was a little 6-year-old, you know, and I didn't like that. So we had a few arguments, and like all West Indians did, you live in my house, you do as I say. If you don't want to do as I say, then make your own way, sort of thing. So I made my own way.
At that age, girlfriends?
What, 18? Yeah, well, I met a few girls. We used to go to a youth club. There was a youth club off Denmark Road called St. Jared's. I think it's what you call it now. It's a refuge for people with drinking problems, just facing the police station in Green Hayes. And when I was there, I was going there, you met other people your own age, girls, boys, and that. So I was okay on that side. I was very, very friendly person. I was easy to get on with. So I suppose, yeah. I did okay with girls.
Just one at a time?
Well, that's the way, isn't it? You started with one, and then you get to know people, and then you break up with one, you move to another. You know we go. When you're young anyway. You're fickle-minded, innit? You just want to get on with life and enjoy life.
So what was it with white people, I should say, just being blunt? The difference?
I was wary of white people. I was wary of them because they talk completely different from me. You know what I mean? They smile at you, but the eyes said something else. But some of them I got on okay with. Some were okay. So I never judged all white people as being the same. I learned to take people as I found them. You know, I judge you on the way they were with me, sort of thing. So I was okay. I fared well. Plus, I wasn't a little guy. I was a big guy. I was 6'3". I was nearly 14.5 stone. So, you know what I mean? I had a presence. I had a presence, sort of thing. So most of the things was mostly verbal. I could handle verbs, but there was nothing physical. That came later on.
Clubbing in Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
How was it as a young man?
Clubs in Manchester was brilliant. You had so many clubs to choose from, you were never bored. Saturday nights, you didn't have to go to any one club. I mean, in Moss Side, you had about 4 or 5 clubs you can go to. From you had the Lagos Lagoon, you had the Capital, you had the Nile, the Reno, the Adastra. They were all clubs you can go to. And as being a young guy, you never went and stayed in any one club. You moved around to see what was there. If anything that was there that suits you, then you stayed. If it wasn't, Then you moved on. At that time, it was only like a shilling to get in a club, which is the equivalent now of 5p. That was all. So when you're earning a few bob, you can go to different clubs. Nightlife was fine. Different music was fine. But at that time, there wasn't sound systems as they are now. It was mostly live music. Like in the Nile, there was a band, about 4 guys in a band. Downstairs in the Reno, you had steel bands. Singer upstairs in the Capitol. Lagos Lagoon was the same. Steel bands. The only place you heard a bit of music was down the parties. If you went on a party, somebody would have like a record player, put a record on, play some music down there, have a little bar, and you had a little drink if you drank.
Was there lots of parties?
Yeah, you had 3-4 parties in the street. Then it took off even, it got better. Coming up to the 60s, every street had their own party. You had the different sound systems that you follow. Count Booze, you had Kaz, you had Rocket, and you just follow the sound that you know what I mean, that you enjoyed being around.
So any little thing used to happen at these parties?
Yeah, you had a little fracas. You know what I mean? There was a lot of, what should I say? I mean, nowadays, kids stab. But in those times, you had a lot of cutting. People used to get, like every weekend, you go out, you hear somebody got cut. The fight started, somebody got cut in the face, somebody got cut across the whatever. But nobody died. There was no stabbings. And if you had a fight this weekend, next weekend you see each other, you either kind of shake hands or you avoided one another, but it never went on like it does now. There was no gangs, you know what I mean? We were all individuals. Although a certain amount of people went up together, you were still what should I say? You looked after yourself. You didn't depend on other people to do things for you. You know what I mean? If you got in trouble, then you sorted out yourself. You didn't call on your friends. Not like now, people would go out looking for trouble and having the bodies to back them up. We didn't have that. There was none of that went on.
So what was like the valid reason what people was fighting about?
Women. Guys always get involved with women, innit? Guys see a woman he fancies, he want to move in. You've been there, you kind of resent what he's doing or what he's saying. Things happen. Few times I go in scuffs over crap like that, but like it says, you learn as you go on. I touch wood, I never got caught. I never caught anyone, or anything like that, but you had to make your presence felt. As it says, you couldn't be well, I can't use the word, but you couldn't be one of them. You had to stand up for yourself.
So basically, you wouldn't lose fight?
Oh, you had to hold your own. If you were a loser, then people would always come after your ass, wouldn't they? But if they knew you can handle yourself, then you were left alone. And that's all I wanted to do, was to be left alone. I didn't want to prove anything to anybody. But then again, if it came, you had to handle it.
Were you a bit of troublemaker?
No, I wasn't a troublemaker. I was a man of peace. I try and avoid all modes of violence. But at the same time, if you're cornered, and there's nothing you can do about it besides putting your dudes up and fighting your way out, then you've got no choice but. I mean, don't forget, that was we had the teddy boys used to kick, you know what I mean, used to come around and give us grief, so you had to do battle with them. You had your fronters, was the same,
Let's go back. Who is the teddy boys?
Well, in the 60s, you had a group of guys who used to call themselves teddy boys. They used to wear hush puppies and long coats and slick ears, and sometimes they think that you shouldn't be where they are, especially if there's girls and you kind of see something you wanted to move in on, and maybe they thought you didn't have the right to be there or to talk to certain girls, so sometimes, or you just had to deal with it.
These teddy boys are black or white people?
No, it's white teddy boys. White boys. You know what I mean? They used to hang around in the cafes, stuff like that. You go in town, you'd bump into them in the market street or whatever, and if you were in your own, sometimes they might try and intimidate you, so you did what you had to do. Yeah, well, we just had a few running battles with them. I mean, I used to knock about with had Junior Mushy, used to be with him. We had Roy. Sometimes about 5 or 6 of us used to go out, and if we went out, and if anything happened, we looked after each other. We used to go to the Derby Arms, had a few battles down there, on Rochdale Road, but just things that had to happen at the time, because we were under pressure as youths. There's places we wanted to go, and certain people didn't want us to be there, but we went anyway. We wasn't asking for anything. We paid our way. And if we came across resentment, and especially if it led to violence, then we had to do battle. We had to fight.
When we talk about girlfriend, did you have any children with any?
Yeah, I had a daughter with a girl I was with for a while. That was in 1965. Yeah, that was my first child. Seen her for a while, and then me and the mum split, and the mum took her. Never seen her for a while. Never seen her for years. And in the meantime, I had other children. Had some more daughters. Had sons. Yeah, all told, I got six kids: 4 girls, 2 boys. Loads of grandkids. Couple of 5 great grandkids. So
you was a local player.
Yeah. I mean, you're young. You're there to enjoy life, innit? I mean, as I got older, I kind of cooled down. But at that time, like any 20, 22-year-old, you're making your way. You're sowing your oats, so to speak. And I did a few. I sown a few. I enjoyed my younger days. Yeah, it's fun. There's places to go, things to do.
But there is cinemas.
There was movies. We had the Wycliffe Picture House right there on Princess Road. You had where the Naya. That was a kind of place that they used to have music hall. You had where the Timber Yard is now by the Wally Pub. There used to be a picture house. You had the York. Yeah, you had a few picture houses there. That was the main thing, because television just came online, innit? And not a lot of people had televisions. So the only form of entertainment was movies or weekends, clubs.
What type of movie if you can remember watching?
I like westerns. A lot of westerns. I watch westerns, war films. No, any kind of films with action in it.
Who were the big stars then?
At the time, there's all. Yeah, like Rock Hudson. Who was it? Rock Hudson, Jack Palance made a few. Eddie Murphy was Rory Calhoun. All those were the guys that made action films. John Wayne. Everybody knew about John Wayne and Humphrey Bogart. Guys like that. He made good movies. You paid your money. You want to see him.
Can you remember the prices of houses those times?
I think my old man bought his for $3.5 grand or $4 grand. But don't forget, $4 grand was a lot of money compared to the wages that you got at the time. 4,000 was a lot of money. You could get a good house. 10 grand you was in, using the 3-bedroom, big house kind of bracket then. Not like now. Yeah, houses was cheap. Cars were cheap. You can get a car for a couple of £100. No, not like now. It costs thousands for a car.
How long you have to work to save what those hundreds are clean?
Oh yeah, well, at £6 and £7 a week, and you go buy food and pay pay for coal and, you know, all the household things that you needed. It took you a while. You saved a lot. You saved a lot. It took you a while to save enough money to buy a car, even more so for a house.
I know your memory is very good. Can you remember like the prices of food, any food?
Food was cheap. Food wasn't expensive as it was now, because basically you lived off English style foods. Because don't forget, and at that time there was no imports of West Indian foods over here. There was no yam and banana and your sweet potato like you can get now. That came later. So basically it was just anything you eat was English. You can have your Sunday dinner. Every Sunday you put a chicken in the oven and you roast it out with roast potatoes and that was your basics kind of meal. Then, I mean, your takeaway, your main takeaway was fish and chips. Not like you have now. You got all your different style of cuisine that you can buy now. It was just the staple we had was fish and chips. That was your lot.
Fish and chips.
Yeah. That was your main takeaway meal, if you wanted anything.